What is up, everyone? I am TST's the Mudman, and it's time to figure out what we are going to play this weekend ranked in Gods Unchained. But first, I have huge news. We have reached the 1-year anniversary of the What to Play Over the Weekend series, and what better way to celebrate an anniversary than by throwing away a bunch of money? So I've got 100 gods, Caution is going to match me with 100 gods, and 10 lucky viewers are going to win 20 gods each. All you've got to do is like this video, be subscribed to the channel, comment your Discord ID as well as what deck you'll play this weekend, and you could win. Also, you could share the video. I'd really appreciate it. I don't think there's a way that I can check, so it's not officially part of the rules, but I would really appreciate it if you share the video. I think people would think you're cool. It's highly recommended. But with all that being said, let's talk about this weekend's meta. So we are on gudex.com looking at the Mythic meta over the past 7 days, and we did receive a balance patch yesterday. However, the balance patch was not particularly meta relevant. The TLDR is Over the Line Death no longer exists. That deck has been completely destroyed. But Zoo Light, Hidden Rush, Deception, Control War, all completely unchanged. So the meta is pretty much the same as it has been for the past couple of weeks. And then you may have noticed that the God popularity is slightly different than it has been for the past couple of weeks, but the information is sort of skewed. The community contest started this week, which incentivized players to play archetypes that tapped out at 5 mana. Hence, gods like nature being more popular than usual. So, these stats right here are not the most accurate. I imagine the god popularity will be very similar to like last week's video because of that aforementioned contest. But now let's talk about each of the gods and their most popular archetypes, starting with the most popular god in Deception. The most popular archetype for Deception is definitely Hidden Rush Deception. You might run into a couple of those Steal Your Stuff Deception decks, but Hidden Rush Deception is by far the most popular archetype for the god, and it's very powerful. Next up, we have Nature, which can either be aggressive wild nature or Amazon nature. Amazon nature has been rising up in popularity, and we actually have a very interesting Amazon nature deck to feature in this video, so stay tuned for that. And then we get to Light. Light is always Zoo Light. Zoo Light is the most popular archetype in the meta right now, making up around 17% of the meta. For reference, Hidden Rush Deception fluctuates between around 10 and 11% of the meta, so that Zoo Light is substantially more prevalent than even the most popular god. Then we move to the highest win rate god in War. Control War is definitively the best deck in the game. It was all over the top 20 decks last weekend. It's not uncommon to see like an aggressive war deck, but over the weekend, Control War is definitely the top dog. Then we have Magic. Magic is either Control Magic or Tempo Magic. However, Control Magic is much more common than Tempo Magic. And finally, we have Death. And like I said just a few minutes ago, Over the Line Death is gone. So as far as Death is concerned, it can either be Zombies, Anubians, or Board Wipe Death. And Zombies and Anubians are by far the most popular, Zombies being the most popular out of the two. If you see your Death opponent picks the Soulburn God Power, then that means they are Zombies. If they pick Blood Ritual, then they are most likely Anubians. But now that we have gone over each of the gods, let's look at some specific decks you might want to play this weekend. Alright, let's start things off with Aggro Deception. This list was made by Fake Muse, and this is a pretty normal Aggro Deception list. We've been talking about Aggro Deception for weeks now, but as you can see from the mana curve, this has an extra thick top end. Over a quarter of the cards are 4 mana, and I'm a big fan of these 4 mana cards. Let's go over them a bit. We have Avatar of Deception, Lokian Disciple, as well as Feral Shapeshifter, 4/4s for 4. And these 4 mana 4/4s are very strong in the meta right now. Currently at Mythic rank, most decks are trying to play Blade of White Plains on 5, and obviously this creature is too big to be Blade of White Plains. It's also hidden, which makes it hard to interact with, so if your opponent does play a Blade of White Plains, your creature can't be targeted, and you have an automatic value trade ready for next turn. So it pretty much just denies that Blade of White Plains on curve, which is very strong in the meta currently. Our other powerful 4-drops are Pietro, which is pretty much... also we have Shadewalker, I almost forgot about that. It's a 4/3, so it's not technically a 4/4 for 4, but it does the exact same thing, and it scales over time, so it does a lot of damage. And obviously, all of these 4-health creatures are great candidates for Assassin's Aim. They can also be Orpheos distracted many times, so that they're hard to interact with. They're just very good in the meta currently. But back to Pietro, it's pretty much a Deception staple at this point. It builds you a board, it hides all of your stuff, and it pairs very nicely with the final 4-drop in Arms Dealer. This is a hidden creature with Echo that for 1 mana a turn, it buffs your entire board's attack. Its Echo creature is particularly powerful with Pietro on 5. You can play Pietro with that little Echo guy, have a very difficult board to interact with that gets buffed subsequently the next turn for big damage. All in all, I am a big fan of this Hidden Rush Deception deck. Fake News has played 64 games with a 70% win rate, so it is definitely a contender for a good deck over the weekend ranked, and I think it'll be fun. Alright, next up we have Amazon Nature. This list was made by Mighty Uncle, and this is actually the list that I'm most excited about this video. We've been talking about Amazon Nature for the past 2 weeks, I think, and maybe the other decks didn't have this card, maybe I just didn't notice it until now, but there is one card in particular that is pushing Amazon Nature from being a meme playable deck to being an actually good deck, and that is Martyr of White Plains. Surprise! Turns out Martyr of White Plains is really good, and despite the fact that this is an Olympian, I think that this is the key card in these Amazon decks. So let's go over some of the primary combination cards with the Martyr of White Plains. First off, and I think most flashy out of all of them, is Morty's Daughter right here. Any Blitz creature combos very nicely with Martyr of White Plains because you can destroy the Blitz creature when you want to, meaning you can pretty much guarantee that it comes back from your Martyr of White Plains. And Morty's Daughter has 2 effects. It's naturally a 5-mana 2/2 with Blitz. Its first effect is you can give it +2/+2, or you can give another random friendly Amazon +4/+3. Usually you always pick the +4/+3 option, it's just much stronger, and you still can. But the fact that Morto's Daughter has Blitz means it's very easy to pair with that Martyr of White Plains, so if you wanted to pick the +2/+2 option and make it a 5-mana 4/4 with Blitz, you can trade off an opposing creature, destroy your Morto's Daughter, and then it comes back to your hand as a 4/4, which means the next time you play it, it can either be a 5-mana 6/6 with Blitz, or it can be a 5-mana 4/4 with Blitz that also buffs a friendly Amazon +4/+3, which is incredibly powerful. You can also pick the +4/+3 option, Blitz the 2/2 version into a creature and just have another Morto's Daughter to play later. It's very powerful, and then of course it's a 5-mana card, which means you can play your Martyr of White Plains on 3, pip into Morto's Daughter, and then do all of those crazy shenanigans, which is incredibly strong. We also have Vicious Manticore as well as Warrior of Paradise, both Blitz creatures, so they pair nicely with that White Plains, not quite as well as the Morto's Daughter. Vicious Manticore is very nice. Its overkill helps it, clear the board a little bit, and its frenzy effect deals a little bit of extra burst damage, so it's a very decent creature, a good one to bring back off that Martyr of White Plains. Another excellent Martyr target is River Jumper Captain, a 3-mana creature, naturally a 1/4 with Ward, but it gets +1 strength for each Amazon you control. This creature is harder to pull off with the Martyr of White Plains because not only does it not have Blitz, it also incentivizes you to have a wide board full of potentially very small Amazons that could be destroyed. However, if you are able to pair your River Jumper with the Martyr of White Plains, just like with Morto's Daughter, it'll retain the buffs, so the second time you play it, it'll be absolutely huge, a very powerful combo, and then also, we of course have cards like Underbrush Boar, which are good with Martyr of White Plains. But then, besides all of the broken White Plains combos, you just have your normal Amazon stuff. As you can see from the curve, there are an abundance of 1 through 3 mana cards, so you can spill onto the board very quickly. You have your cards like Primal Guidance, which is great for controlling the board. It's very good against Hidden Rush Deception. Pretty much all of Nature's removal is good against Hidden Rush Deception, which is a very popular archetype in the meta right now. It also has the ability to go wider faster than Light, so it's not, I wouldn't say it's a good matchup against Light, but it does have the ability to fight for board in those difficult Zoo-Light matchups. I guess one important thing to note is I have been gushing over the Martyr of White Plains, but also Martyr of White Plains is in sort of a rough spot in the meta currently. The most popular god is Deception, which of course has Umber Arrow, and Umber Arrowing a Martyr of White Plains is game-winning, so that's very scary. And then the second most popular god is Light, which has Light's Levy, that comes down on curve to destroy your Martyr of White Plains and nullify its ability. So, it's a bit of a toss-up that you can actually get your Martyr of White Plains off, but if you can, it is incredibly powerful, and this deck seems really strong, really fun. Mighty Uncle himself has played 20 games with a 90% win rate, and then the world at large has played 93 games with a 67% win rate, nearly a 70% win rate. Usually the world at large ads are far, far lower than the top pilot. win percentages, so this deck is definitely strong. It wins the majority of the time. And then the final thing to go over is, as you can see, Mighty Uncle has selected all 3 God Powers. However, he has picked Selena's Mark in almost all the games. His final 2 games, he picked Animal Bond and Flourish. I feel like that was either a mistake, maybe he stepped away as he was queuing, or maybe he's just trolling. Mighty Uncle's so good he can beat you even with the wrong God Powers. So when you're playing this deck, you should definitely go with the Selena's Mark God Power. It's excellent against Deception. It's decent against other stuff. But yeah, this seems like a great deck, and I think it should do well this weekend. Alright, now we have Zoo Light. This list was made by Spicy Beef. And Zoo Light has been the most popular god for like about a month now. It's very strong. This list is very, very normal. It does have a copy of Bright Mage, as well as an extra buff card in Chaining of the Gods. Very rarely does a light deck have 2 Radiant Dons, 2 Canonizes, an Asterius, and a Chaining. So if you're wondering what this player removed for the Bright Mage and the Chaining of the Gods, it looks like he has omitted the Empyrean Pacifist, which I am a big fan of. Empyrean Pacifist is not particularly good against Deception, it's not good in the mirror match, and by the time it's big enough to start being strong, it gets Blade of White Plains, so I don't think it's very good in the meta right now. Whereas Bright Mage can't be Blade of White Plains, making it good in the meta right now. And on top of that, Chaining of the Gods is just very strong. This seems like a very good light list. The pilot has an 84% win rate over 19 games, so it seems quite strong. And like I just said, light has been great for about a month, and this is a good list. So if you want to keep it going with the Zoo Light, then this one should do great this weekend. And now we have Control War, the best deck in the meta. This list was made by Valdez, and this was the best performing deck over the past weekend ranked event. Valdez went 17 out of 18. This deck only has 11 plays, so obviously he didn't use this exact list for the entire run, but this was his final product. And like I said in the beginning of this video, like I said just a moment ago, Control War is currently the best deck in the meta, and that is because the most popular archetype is Zoo Light. Control War is excellent against Zoo Light. Zoo Light has almost no chance in beating it. The second most popular archetype is Hidden Rush Deception. Control War is also very good at dealing with Hidden Rush Deception with its Carnage Sweeps, its Soul Survivors, as well as its 1-mana AoEs. And in fact, Valdez and a lot of top players have been throwing in Valka's Discovery in here for even more tech against those aggro deception lists. Various forms of aggressive nature, also common on the ladder. This deck destroys that. The comment section hates Control War because it is expensive, but it is the best deck in the game, so it would be a bit remiss not to mention it in the YouTube series where we talk about what the best decks in the meta are. But I guess one other interesting thing of note is this deck runs 2 copies of Master Tactician in order to give its Hector protected. Usually Adi is your protected card of choice, but evidently Valdez wanted to go with a Master Tactician for a little more power in the early game, maybe a little bit more of that flank action. But all in all, Control War is really strong. It's good against all of the most popular decks in the meta, so if you have the collection to make this deck, if you're willing to play the long hours it takes to finish your weekend with it, then it will do very well. And the final archetype to discuss is Card Draw Magic. This deck was made by Gerald, and like many of the other decks in this video, we've talked about Card Draw Magic a lot in the past. This deck does have one interesting feature. As you can see, we have 2 copies of Warped Engineer as well as a copy of Arcane Transcendent. Usually decks have, just 2 copies. This deck has a third for even more mana reduction, which I am a big fan of. With the introduction of Knowledge, there is another spell that you want to be reducing. So with the bonus mana reduction, you have the flexibility you need to have a big board clear with the Unbound Flames and still reduce enough spells to have a big flashy spell boost turn to finish things off. Tempo Magic, or Card Draw Magic, whatever you want to call it, has been a pretty powerful archetype. It's relatively good against Deception. It has a pretty hard time against Light. You really need to hit that cheapened Unbound Flames if you want any chance of winning. But ultimately, it's a fun deck. I would say it's a good B-tier deck in the meta. But if you want to play Tempo Magic, I think this is a particularly good list. I think it should do fairly well this week. Alright, it is conclusion time. We talked about the things. We looked at the stuff. We got filled with nostalgia thinking about all the times we figured out what to play this year. What should we play this weekend? Well, the answer is the same as it has been. Either Zoo Light or Control War. However, I am a huge fan of this nature deck. But whatever you go with, try to have fun. Tell us how you did in the TST Discord. Don't forget to comment your Discord ID, as well as what deck you'll be playing for your chance to win 20 gods, courtesy of me and Caution Fun. And have a wonderful day. Hey, you! Did you know that subscribing to the TST YouTube channel will increase your win rate by 6.9%? So what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications. And while you're at it, equip Scythe of the Harvest and attack the like button directly in the face. Bye-bye!